Welcome to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf, a space for women healing from betrayal to reconnect with their mind, body, and soul, one page at a time. I'm Rachel Strong-Smith, a betrayal trauma coach who's walked this path myself. In each episode, we'll explore books that speak to the heart of recovery, books that validate your experience, offer insight, and remind you that you're not alone. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about coming home to yourself. So, whether you're in the thick of survival or finding your way back to solid ground, pull up a chair. You're in the right place. Hi there, and welcome back to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. We're going to continue talking about Not a Casserole Widow by Kim Hansen Petroni. I hope that you've had a chance to listen to her interview and the other first part of this. We're going to dive into volume 2 of her workbook, and I'm going to review it, offer my thoughts, opinions, experience. So volume 2 is a lot about the strategies of working really through the logistics of divorce. There's also support emotionally. Kim offers a really great metaphor. You heard her talk about it in her interview about the amusement park. And she also gives a great term, snollygoster. So she goes into a lot more detail in her workbook. And again, this workbook has sections for you to be able to fill in. She has questions and space for you to work through it. She also gives reminders to check in with your body. I think it's a really valuable resource. So again, some of the logistics are types of divorce and what that can look like. Mediation, what that is. And I really liked the part about managing reality. Kim gives the definition of reality, which is the quality or state of being actual or true. One thing, such as a person, an entity, or an event that is actual. The totality of all things possessing actuality, existence, or essence. That which exists objectively and in fact. Kim really talks about how the reality of betrayal bewilders your soul. She offers 3 pieces to look at. How do you engage with a world that is out of your control? How can you manage your physical and emotional reactions during this whirlwind? And what are specific and practical ways to change your current reality? I kind of wanted to look at reality in the sense of what is reality. So we have that definition. Betrayal trauma specifically alters your reality. There is a lot of gaslighting that happens with betrayal from the partner who has betrayed you, and it's really hard to distinguish what is up, what is down, because we actually have our own realities inside of us. We have thoughts, we have beliefs, we have emotions, we have experiences. Those are the reality that you're experiencing. That's it. We can get into a metaphysical discussion about what is real and is real subjective. Is there an actual truth? We're not going to go there. The truth is, whatever you are experiencing is reality. So what happens when somebody gaslights you is this person comes in and says, no, what you are experiencing is not the reality. They superimpose their reality onto yours. And that creates a lot of dissonance. That creates chaos inside of you. Because now you're like, but I do feel angry, frustrated, disappointed, disconnected. This person is telling me, no, you don't. Or even worse, that you are feeling that and then you are bad for feeling that. Or threatens to leave you because you are feeling that, threatens abandonment, uses fear tactics. So I just want to put that kind of out there as a foundation for understanding what is actually happening. There's also something that happens because of that, is that it's hard to even accept the reality of what we are feeling and seeing. And what can happen is avoiding reality of what is, what you're observing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Kim says something really poignant. Avoiding reality was helpful because if I accepted the betrayal as true in my mind, I would have to take serious steps to protect myself. Another term Michelle Mays has coined is betrayal blindness. And that happens because we go into survival mode. We're trying to protect ourselves. And it is really hard to see the reality. I'll share my experience was I spent 20 years in a space of not being able to fully see, accept, and really acknowledge the reality that my husband was regularly and consistently betraying me. It was a protective mechanism because it was too painful for me to really admit that this was my reality. Even when I could get to a point where I said, I don't like this doesn't feel good, I still had this protective mechanism of maybe the anger. I could get angry, but I couldn't get to that place of what this is really happening. I see this a lot with my clients. We can talk about even what's happening and what they're feeling and what they're seeing, what the partner did, how it affected them. But there is some protective mechanism, and it just is, that keeps it from going in as a true accepting that this is my reality. I think it's a way to, like Kim said, not have to do the things that I would need to do if this were actually my reality. So if you find yourself there, it's okay. It's not about, I've got to get out of that. It's more of a just gentle acceptance of this is where I am. I'm not totally ready to really accept the impact and the reality of the situation. And it's okay to accept little bits at a time. Take it slow, getting the support that you need, really having someone who is safe with you. That's what I do in my coaching. It isn't about getting them out of it. It's actually about sitting with them in it. So that actually creates the safe container to be able to see the reality when you and your body are ready for that. All right, let's move on to another section. Inner voices. Kim says, if we fail to explore our inner voices and find ways to challenge them, we may get stuck in self-criticism and hopelessness. So it's really about getting aware and recognizing these inner voices. Sometimes they can even be completely conflicting voices that come in. Kim talks about maybe more positive internal statements. I can do this. I need to show my kids that I'm strong. I have done hard things before. I can do this. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I'm a wimp. I need to get tough. I'm not strong enough to do this. No one else is afraid. Everyone else is going to be disappointed with me if I don't write it. And this one I think is a really interesting one. That roller coaster isn't so high. I'm not afraid. That is actually not reality either, to just say I'm not afraid, right? Because that's another protective mechanism or part that's coming in to say, no, we're not going to feel that. And it disconnects you from the actual experience. I like the distinction that Kim makes. Truth doesn't ignore or make the situation better. Truth encourages us to focus on the actual reality we can based on evidence currently available. So again, in her workbook, she offers space to really explore those inner dialogues and statements. I do that in my coaching as well, where we talk about what are those voices? What are the words? They come from a lot of different places. We collect them, we create them, and it's really about checking in with what am I hearing? What am I saying? And bringing it to the consciousness rather than keeping it suppressed, where they're running things, even if we're not aware of it. Those voices, they're running things. So it's about just bringing them to consciousness, again, with gentle acceptance, not judgment. I really don't believe in strong arming our thoughts away. It's not about, oh, you have a thought that doesn't serve me. Let's push that away and then I'll feel better. I really find that that just creates a shadow energy, which just suppresses it and doesn't actually heal the wound that is coming from. Healing the wound where those voices are coming from takes that time, that safety, support to really explore and find, first of all, just the edges of what is happening before going in and trying to mess around in that. I think that that happens too soon and too often. Oh, I found a voice or a belief that doesn't serve me. Boom, I'll just change another one. I'll just repeat it over and over and over. And well, yes, I understand the concept of affirmations. I don't think it actually gets to the heart of what is going on. That takes a mindful exploration with support. Another section that Kim offers, which is very helpful, is choosing an attorney, giving worksheets to help you to organize questions, answers of what the attorney may ask for and what the attorney may need. I have a friend who I supported her through mediation and got to see a little bit of insight into that space. And she has shared a lot of her experience with me. It has a lot of logistical issues in there. There is finances, there is childcare, there is property, there is agreements and all of that. And then attorneys and court and legal issues and documents, so many documents and filing deadlines. Whew. It is really helpful to have support through that because that doesn't even touch the emotional impact of divorce, the grief, even the reason why you're getting the divorce, the doubts, the questions, the children, the fears, the worries. So I really encourage anyone who is experiencing legal, divorce, mediation issues to really find that support. At the very least, pick up Kim's book to just give you some guidance in this. Lastly is about sharing your story. This is a very personal matter of who, how, and when you share your story and what is happening. A lot of times, especially in divorce, that becomes a very public matter because you are getting divorced. People know that is a very big transition and shift. And you're going to have lots of different levels of people's interest and how safe you feel about sharing whatever details. So Kim really walks you through finding your boundaries around sharing your story. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is when you share your story and you're not getting divorced. This is something that I found for me personally. I knew people who got divorced because their husband had a sex addiction or affair or other sexual acting out behaviors. So they get a divorce. First of all, you don't really hear about that happening before, and then they get a divorce. Now I'm hearing about, well, my husband was unfaithful, so and now we're divorced. And that was the story kind of in a nutshell. And I knew these people on various levels and knew various details, and the story really arced that way to me. So here I was, and I had not told my story to anyone. And I'm watching people get divorced who've experienced betrayal, and I'm staying, and I felt really alone because a lot of people could, oh, that makes sense that they got a divorce because he was unfaithful or he was betraying her or he has a sex addiction that never got into recovery. And here I am being like, I'm staying People don't talk about this. I am experiencing betrayal. I am experiencing grief, and I am experiencing some levels of various separation. And I don't know who to talk to about this, and I don't know how to talk about this. So when I was finally ready to share my story with other than a handful of people who I did end up confiding in, and it was like 3 people on this earth. And it was mildly relieving, but they didn't have experience really, and they didn't really know what to do or say or how to help me. So when I was ready to find that support, I found coaches and groups for the first time ever spoke my story. And I had to, going back to reality, I had to come to some place of accepting this was my reality before I could speak it to somebody else. The more that I could speak it, the more it confirmed, yes, this is what's happening. Having that support was really crucial. So finding the right people to share and speak my truth with was so important. I remember the first time I spoke my story out loud, I was shaking, and it was so it was so hard to get through. I have found the more that I have shared my reality, my story, my experience, it gets easier because I accept the reality of my past and my present. And I accept where I am and what I have experienced. I just really appreciate in this book talking about sharing your story, who and how do you want to, because there are some people that it is just simply not safe to share your story with. And then there are varying degrees and levels at which you would like to share which details and how. This workbook offers some reflection questions and who and how you want to share, and offers some boundary work with that. The last section really goes into snollygoster communication. Oh, I just loved this so much because she talks about 2 acronyms. JADE, which stands for Justify, Argue, Defend, and Explain, and BIFF, which stands for Brief, Informative, Friendly, and Firm. She encourages us to stick with BIFF, not JADE. And whether or not you are divorcing or still in the relationship with the person who has betrayed you, this is one of the hardest things to get to. And it doesn't happen just intellectually. It really needs to be embodied, because it is so tempting to justify, to argue, to defend, to explain. Ooh, right? I'll just share the worst thing in the whole world to me is if someone thinks that I am bad, did something wrong, mean, etc. And this was one of my husband's favorite tactics, all unconsciously, but it was a tactic. He would say, well, you don't care about me. Obviously, if you're having these feelings, you don't love me. So what? You just don't want to have a relationship with me? Then I'm on the defense of like, no, I do. I love you. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing. I'm showing up. And here we go. And then I'm explaining, and I'm trying to get him to see my point. Unfortunately, when someone is in addiction, mindset, behaviors, etc., and it is not just an acting out behavior, it is how they show up when they're in addiction and or any other toxic snollygoster behaviors, and for whatever reason that they're there. Defending, explaining, justifying, and arguing, all that does, it's actually supposed to just keep you spinning. It does distract you from what's actually happening. And there was this sense that it felt like connection. I don't know about you guys, but I would do those late night talking around in circles trying to solve this and getting just so flustered and very angry and trying to make this stop. And it really just added more to the trauma bond. When I shifted to showing up more in BIFF, again, brief, informative, friendly, and firm, it actually felt a little bit like I'm cold, I'm distant, I'm not being loving and compassionate and kind, almost like yelling, arguing, not even yelling, but just arguing, defending, really trying to get my point across, being passionate. Somehow that was going to work, but it was really me trying to control the situation. But I couldn't go to this place of BIFF without doing the real internal work needed for me to look at what are my core beliefs and my values and about relationships and how I really want to show up, and really taking the time to look at my fears around rejection and abandonment. Because Jade kept me in this cycle, but I didn't feel like I was being abandoned or rejected. And BIFF starts to feel like, oh, I can be accused of being cold or distant. And I didn't want that. I had to work through that before I could even show up this way. And when I started showing up this way, he did freak out. And it's because I wasn't getting sucked in to the behaviors. And I wasn't doing it to do anything to him. I was just like, this doesn't work for me. I don't want to show up in this space anymore. And the reality is we are disconnected. We do have a lack of intimacy because of your behaviors. This is what it looks like. The conversation that I need to keep is brief now. And I started slowly integrating that again, not as a white knuckle, not as aloofness, which is just the same as getting sucked in, because aloofness is just like, well, fine, I don't care, right? And all of this is nuanced and it takes practice and trying it. I did try an aloofness. My aloofness was still to control and manage the situation, and I did not feel good about me. So when I really could come to this place of brief, informative, friendly, and firm, I had to know my boundaries, know my values, understand my inherent worth. And all of that did not come from just a mindset change. It came from really deep embodiment work through support, coaching, and having somebody there who was safe for me to explore these areas and really start to heal by leaning into the process. All right, I'm going to stop there. This has been a great discussion. Kim also goes into just more about court and then offers more resources at the end. I loved talking with her and her interview, and this is a great workbook. I would recommend it. And thank you for spending the time with me. Again, like always, take what resonates and leave the rest. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining me today on the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. If something from this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend or come connect with me online. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Rachel Strong Smith. And if you want to go deeper, sign up for my email newsletter, where I share grounded support, personal insights, and practical tools to help you reconnect with yourself. Remember, healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral, and every step towards yourself matters. So until next time, take gentle care.